kama maovu yakitawala. Get wadhifa, una deserve bila kasha makashfa. Hii society Kenya wanaeza share ni nyungu ya busa ama keto ya shisha. Mfuko zinasikia echo, unajua thamani ya mali na size ya kifuli. Eyo, ujaibiwa juu hauna kakitu worth. Risking jail time, police bullet for. Unaweza argue, crime doesn't pay, lakini uwezi dismiss justice in a bay. Mwizi ana 40 days, 365 days later anaendelea kugrow fatter. Do anything for power, ready to lose their head for presidency. Bora waione kwa currency. Sababu gani siko affected na turbulence? Nikifly angani, nimezoea the same feeling. Matatu zikipitia pothole mtaani. Juliane, yeah, yeah. Nikontata siezi karaka. Uwe hae, shagala bagala.
And isn't that where we are this morning at 6:15? This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. And coming off of a day where we didn't expect things to happen, and it was just Tuesday. This is the 18th of June, and it looks as though we've been through 180 days, but we've just been through 18 in this month. And as we start off the conversation, Ndu, Dio, and DA with you. Good morning, guys.
Morning. How are you?
Me? I'm okay. I mean, I'm still surprised.
How are you, Ndu?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, I needed to take a minute and answer the question. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Mr. Kari, good morning.
Good morning.
Uko salama?
Niko salama. Physically, I'm okay. Health-wise, I'm okay. We bless God. Thank God for another day.
How are you enjoying the
thank God
cold?
for life. Huh?
Enjoying the weather?
It's extremely cold. Look at how I'm dressed. It's just so cold.
Bivanza.
Yeah.
Relax. When you hear me say it's cold, then we will know that it is actually cold.
You give us your secret.
Don't worry. I'll whisper. But
Let's
you promise not to tell anybody.
Yeah.
No, let's not. Let's not.
Not today is Wednesday.
I see where you're going, and I'm
so
going
we'll
to
talk tomorrow about Wednesday.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this time tomorrow morning and see where we are. Right? We saw a day yesterday where things we didn't expect to happen would happen, right? And so that because of that, we're going to do things a little bit differently this morning. I keep saying that we don't really need to look so far or to look too hard to find the things, unfortunately, that dampen our spirits. You saw her on TV yesterday. You saw her in the streets yesterday. You've seen her before. She's an activist and she joins us this hour. MWANASE AHMED is here with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Niko salama. Nashukuru. Glad to still be breathing and living to fight another day.
Isn't that, it's interesting that is how we now say, glad to still be living and breathing and fight another day. I mean, and that's the world that we are in. And you join us this morning, obviously, to have a conversation about some of the things that we saw yesterday. And because of those things that we saw yesterday, unfortunately, forms the discourse for the nation at the moment. So as we get into this, Karibu Sana, welcome to the Situation Room, looking at the situation in the country at the moment and then having conversations about what should be. And that's what we'll do this morning. Good morning, everybody. As you tune in, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. And as we get into conversations today, we're doing things a little bit differently. Obviously, we're having a conversation this morning around what happened yesterday and some of the things that we can hope for coming into the next few days. Our live streams are up on YouTube, on Facebook, and on X. And good morning to our audience on KTN. If you tuned in around the country on terrestrial radio, Karibu Sana into the Situation Room. All right, I'm greeting all of you, and I'm going to do one concert greeting, and I can see you, each and every one of you, as you step into the room this morning. So Karibu, and we'll talk with you as we go through the morning, but as we get into this conversation, just know that we're all together in it. You're going to share a proverb, Dennis,
yes.
And we're going to have a word about that quick as we get into this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are in the country Rwanda, one country that stands out, especially in a sad way, in terms of the 1994 genocide that happened. Over 800,000 people died. And with that, we see where the country has come from in terms of just making sure that the country gels together. And it is a country where laptop for school children is a reality. It's not like Kenya, where it was just a talk and nothing to show for it. And aside from that, one of the most cleanest countries in the world, no plastics in that country. They come out once a month making sure that they clean their streets, an initiative that perhaps Nairobi, Kenya would just learn from that. And our proverb today, the night is counted by the one who stayed awake. The night is counted by the one who stayed awake. What do you make of that?
I think the first thing that came to mind was I think there's also a lot of political bloodshed behind Kagame and his regime. So there is a lot that can be admired as to certain things within that country, but it's been due to political murders, silencing of dissent and opposition. So that's the first thing that came to mind as we're talking about Rwanda. We have also similarities there and across East Africa. The night is
counted by the one who stayed awake.
Counted, the night as in the soldier,
or
the night usiku, because there's two nights.
Yes.
I think there's many different ways that could be interpreted. I think the way that it resonates to me is in terms of, awake in the sense of actually keeping your eyes open to the reality and what's happening and the situation at large. So I think we're keeping score very closely as to the state of our nation, the state of East Africa. We are not blind. Sisi hatujazaliwa jana. So we're really aware as to what's happening, who's directing it, where it's stemming from, why, and the transient nature of this transitional period in history.
Yeah.
Indeed, my goodness. Being awake,
Yes.
it's not just that you in the morning you're tired, but that you've been alive to the situation of the night, or what happens in darkness, or what happens when it doesn't seem like it's so encouraging, that you're awake to it and that you're alive to it. Well, isn't that what we're doing? We're going to look into the headlines right now. On the front page of The Standard, Kenya's bold newspaper. It's unfortunate that we see another headline like this, but this is the headline. Killer police. He came to sell masks but left with a bullet through his head. Boniface Kariuki thought he'd cash in on protest day by hawking face masks, but a rogue police officer shattered that hope with a shot to the skull. He's fighting a struggle that if he pulls through, life will never be the same for him again. As thugs looted shops unchecked and police looked the other way, Boniface laid bleeding on the pavement. His friend's cry still haunts the chaos. What will his mother, wife, and children be told? And that is the question that is being asked this morning, and that's on the headline as we look into other stories in the Standard newspaper today. The pictorial, killer cops on page 3. 1 year later, traders struggle to rebuild after chaotic protests. State unleashes armed goons to beat protesters and rob businesses. That forms part of the conversation that we'll be having in a short while. Why did this have to happen in this way? How police have turned cells into death traps for leaders and their enemies. Officers sued for killing protester to remain in a cell. Is the president in charge, or he's being held captive by government allies? That's another question that's being asked. And then, voila, 3 have been charged with the murder of Kasipul Member of Parliament on the Were. That is carried on page 9. And the bold newspaper is pushing accountability and pushing for it hard. So those are the headlines that we're seeing, and we're looking to do some of those stories in detail even as we have this conversation. Dennis?
Yeah, and on the Daily Nation as well, anarchy, goons unleash terror, gangs armed with crude weapons wage war on peaceful protesters, attack and rob Kenyans as police watch. And shot by police, bullet face mask vendor shot in the head at close range by uniformed officer in yet another case of police brutality. This as well as businesses were shut down yesterday as protests took place in the CBD. And Ojwang protests spread. Kenyans in Kilifi, Kisumu and Mombasa demand resignation of Deputy Inspector General Lagat on pages 2 and 3 as well. Troubling ties between police and the goons that can be seen, individuals walking with baton next to police officers. And an image of the protester who was shot there as well on page 3, and as well as just images of other Kenyans as well who were injured during the protest. As we proceed to pages 4 and 5 as well, just the same coverage on the same. 4 arrested in Mombasa's police cattle demos, and traders in Nairobi CBD closed businesses early, fearing looting. The same has continued to pages 6 and 7. Okari?
Well, I'll quickly go through the Star. The headline, cops plunge Ruto into fresh crisis. Masked policeman shoots mask seller in the head at close range. Those are the pictures that you will basically see of the man standing against the wall, shot, lying down, people carrying him to hospital. Inside pages, rage as policeman shoots man at close range in CBD chaos. Then MPs block KRA's bid to access personal data to raise revenue. Also, Treasury delays pension for civil servants under new scheme. Broke counties to start financial year without Treasury cash again. And government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura says accuses United Arab Emirates, Iran, Egypt of fueling Sudan war. 2 more officers named in Ojwang's murder surrender. I won't go any further. It's dark, gloomy, and cold going through the papers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And it's night, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that we have to be alive to the things that are happening in the night.
Yes.
And that we have to be having those conversations. And the thing about people asking the question, I've had so many questions over the last couple of days where folks say, well, why do you keep talking about it? Why do you keep talking about it? Let's just keep quiet and let it die. And I say that right there, that is the problem. And that's what the status quo would want you to do, to not talk about these issues, because then you bury them and then they become non-issues. The only way to then be able to get any kind of refuge, reprieve, or restoration is by having the conversations. And so, MWANASE, as we are seeing what happened in the streets yesterday, give us your overview. It was to be a protest. It was a protest. It was lobbying. It was Kenyans who wanted to come out and essentially give their piece of their story by marching in protest. But then things quickly escalated. What happened?
Today's actually, June 18th, which is 2 days before Rex Masai was murdered last year during the protests, where Kenyans were asking to be able to live in dignity, live with dignity, for good governance, to have hospitals, health facilities, education, water, basic needs met. So for our basic rights to be implemented, for our duty bearers to work for us, not for their pockets. So it's been a year since then. And as we sit and read these headlines about these 3 charged with murder of the Kasipul MP, Were, and it's been 1 year and there's been so much evidence from even Rex Masai's murderer, and we're still in a public inquest to know, we're still in an inquest just for his case alone, to know whether or not it even deserves to go to trial. No one's been arrested, no one's been prosecuted, no one has been held accountable. There's not been one single arrest since last year of the 65 plus who have been murdered. So their families are still mourning, their families are still grieving, they've lost their sons, they've lost breadwinners, their dreams have been shattered. Albert Ojwang's murder seemed to be a nail in a coffin that tipped public outrage once again. And rightfully so. There's this, you ask about why people are not talking about this, and I think it made me think about that quote. They came for the doctors and I wasn't a doctor, so I didn't speak up. They came for the children, I wasn't a child, so I didn't speak up. They came for the youth. Yesterday they were coming hard for the media. I don't know if you saw that, but it was very brutal, and they come for you in your home. You're a teacher, just speaking online on Twitter. So I think ultimately, if you would like to choose to ignore what's happening right now, it's a part of that ignorance is bliss. Let me live in my little pocket of privilege and disregard. And we become so desensitized as humans that we can see bloodshed, we can see immense poverty, we can see, and continue with our lives. So we're grateful for what's being done to platform this anarchy, this government of murderers. So yesterday we were on the streets because of Albert, but also to demand justice, to demand accountability, and to demand compensation for the victims of the 65 plus who have been murdered since last year. So Albert is, they all also had stories. So we started at around 9 a.m. We gathered and we actually started with a press briefing, and that was because we wanted to make our message clear. Looking at the way the protests have been going over the past year and over the past week, we were aware, and with the threats, over the weekend, there were clear threats from Governor Sakaja saying, Mujaribu, try again and you'll see. There was clear threats as to peaceful protesters to not come out, backed up by Kibet, Ruto's little puppy. Really encouraging, backlash against these protesters. And I think this also comes after previously we've seen videos being circulated by goons demanding payment from Sakaja. We've seen that. Yesterday when the goons came out on the streets as well, they're chanting, Ruto tano tena, Ruto tano tena. And then also saying, what was it? Sakaja mandamano haitafanyika. So they were speaking to those two as they unleashed the utmost violence. So the reason that I'm starting there is because we started the morning by also condemning that, by really condemning the state-sanctioned violence that continues. But we were there. Our message is, we're driven by the love for our country, the love for our people, and the demand for justice, accountability, and compensation for those families. So yesterday we started around 10 a.m. And we were very few. And as we were coming into the city already, we could see goons or officers in civilian with rungus directing traffic as we started to approach our meeting point. I think we all remember that last year there was a court order saying that all officers must be in uniform and cannot be wearing masks. We'll come back to that. But we started with around 20 people. 20 people.
Where was this meeting point?
We started, it was to be at Aga Khan Walk, is where we had to start, where we were to begin. But there were police everywhere. The lorries of police, on foot. So we didn't feel very safe. Fair enough. So we decided to move to Nation Center, which is where we started with our press briefing and gathering. But, police were already starting to come in, blocking off the roads. So with only 20 of us, I think we were tear gassed immediately right at the beginning. That didn't deter us. Tushakula tear gas. We're here for people who have lost their lives. The least we can do is continue what we came for, which is a demand for accountability, a demand for prosecution, a demand for justice. So we continued. We were walking. And within, we were saying their names, we were chanting, we were singing. As always, we were very peaceful. I had even carried my speaker in my bag so we could listen to, songs of resistance, songs of motivation, songs of honoring them. But so we were walking, and it was on University Way about 30 minutes in. I believe it was 10:30 a.m., maybe 11 a.m. And this came as a surprise because it was a very hostile environment in the morning, but last week goons were deployed around 2-3 p.m. So by 10:30 a.m., with a very small group of 30 people among quite a few journalists, we had about 100 goons come in on boda bodas. And we've already seen police everywhere. They're circling us everywhere. They weren't right there on the street at that time, but they're all around us. So all of these, about 100 goons with whips and all masked, all in plain clothing. Some of them look as young as 16, 17. A lot of people have been pulled off the streets of their communities because they're suffering. The economy is hard, so people are willing to take 200 shillings to come and brutalize other Kenyans who are fighting for their rights. So that's when it began. They came threatening us. They even stole a camera from a media person. They robbed somebody. They had whips. They started whipping people, saying, "Hakuna maandamano, hakuna maandamano." And people dispersed. Some of us pushed back a bit. I went up, I could see one of them who was the leader, and I went and I pulled his mask off of him. He actually hit me across the face. But we need to see these people. We need to know them. We need to know their homes. We need to know their families.
Why you have a red eye?
Possibly, yeah. it comes and goes. But yeah, I got a nice. But for me, there's an element of fear that if we maintain, we're not safe anywhere. So we really need to stand up. We need to actually identify these people. They need to also feel afraid of what they're doing in the backlash there, because it's crime. So that's where it began, with about, and they dispersed people. But we kind of came back together. Then they left on their own accord. And as we came around this corner, just about 50 meters from where we were, we come and we see right around the corner, I think it was on Konyange, there's a police van right there. And I'm like, police, because kwanini hizi maboda, why are they, coming, threatening us, whipping us, obviously armed on the streets. So as we approach the vehicle, we see it's a vehicle full of civilian. We don't know who they are now. Are they goons? Are they officers? They're all in civilian clothing. They're wearing masks, but they're in the police car. So this was yes, they were in the back of the police car. And as we walk up to them, we start asking, what are you guys doing? How are you letting this happen? Why are you sitting here watching these goons come threaten us? They were so intimidated, and I pulled off also 2 of their masks so they can be seen. But they're armed. They're in civilian clothing as they climb into their car and drive away, not even able to answer to you as to why they're letting these goons whip us on the streets. You can see they have guns in their back. So
you saw that
I saw the gun, and it's clear we can see it on videos as from yesterday. And then they drive away. So we're 5 people asking them to answer to us why they're not protecting us, and these goons are there. That's where it started. We kept walking. The goons had dispersed, and within 20 minutes, they were back. They were back more violently, more aggressively, stones, whips. And again, let me remind you, we're 30 people. If our government is so afraid of 30 people, we're clearly doing something right in Tutaendelea Hivo Hivo.
Did we have... I want to ask, was there more people in other areas, 30 people in this area, more, because in the course of the day we saw that there were more and more people in the city. So was this a rallied
Absolutely.
Was this a rallied protest? Were there people who were coming together in numbers with one goal?
Absolutely.
Or was it pockets of people in isolated areas?
So ultimately, due to the police presence and violence and things like that, you can't always come exactly to the same spot, and Nairobi's big. So there were people who were all there for the same cause, but there were a few different pockets of that. And some came, and due to the really early violence, there was fear to approach. People were scared to come to that specific area, so that also led to other pockets of a united movement. The goons left, they came back within 20 minutes. Again, each time they came back, it just got more and more violent, more and more aggressive. They were drunk. They were, they were throwing rocks. They were whipping people. They were trying to beat camera people. And it was all with, at this point, the police were hiding. They were hiding. They weren't you couldn't see them. This was around 11:30 a.m. And then the CBD were actually so grateful to the CBD Boda Bodas because they started to see this, and even people from their businesses came out to try to protect the peaceful protesters. So the CBD Boda Bodas, when they were seeing this, this utmost violence, they joined us and they started fighting back and trying to, chase them away with stones. Again, no police presence. So they were intimidated and they left again. And actually one of them at that point was demounted from their Boda Boda. And their Boda Boda was burnt by the local community as a message. You can't come, you can't beat us, you can't bring this into their businesses, disrupting people's ability to be safe and to continue with their business. So the CBD Boda Bodas really came out, supported us, chased them away. They came back again. This time it was very ugly. This time they came back with these huge,
Buttons,
thick rungus, not the thin ones. And when they came, they were just swinging at everyone. They were swinging people across the head, left, right, and center. So with the whips, they weren't quite... they were afraid. They weren't that courageous at that point in the morning. We, just talking to them, saying, you guys are going to be shot in your own communities, because that's where the police violence perpetuates. That's where the harassment is, and we will still be here standing for you. And you're here brutalizing us for doing the same. But then they came back really violently. They were hitting people across the head. It got extremely ugly. And again, police are surrounding the area, but there was no intervention at all.
One of the tough things that we had to watch yesterday, unfortunately, was the shooting at point blank range of Boniface Kariuki, as this was along Moy Avenue, and it brought into question quite a number of things that we're still in the throes of a conversation around what happened, again, at the hands of police with Albert Ojwang, which is what this protest was, primarily about. And there was so much speculation yesterday in terms of what happened to him. It was that he was dead, but we do know that currently he is in hospital. He is alive. We just want to hear from the Director General of the Ministry of Health. Let's hear what he said concerning that yesterday, and we'll come back and continue with this in just a short bit.
And Facebook at SpiceFM KE.
Okay, maybe we'll come back and get that clip in a little while, but just to hear what the Director of Health at the Ministry of Health actually did have to say about what was the situation with Boniface Kariuki, and maybe we can hear that now.
Patient is in theater with the neurosurgical team. As a precaution, of course, we have prepared an ICU bed because a case of such nature requires ICU support immediately in the.
All right, so what there has been is an acknowledgement of the fact that he had been brought into hospital, and continue to hear that. And as we come back into this one, I say, when we this was not expected, obviously, but this happened, and it brings us back to what this protest was about in the first place, and why did we have Kenyans in the street. It has been confirmed, Dennis, that he is alive and that he went through a surgical procedure yesterday, and that he's in critical condition at the moment, but he's got a difficult time ahead of him in terms of surviving this, because he was shot at point blank range. And in addition to that, we know that we did see the presser, that the brief that came from the NPS after that the policeman who had shot him had been arrested, and that they were going to then go into charges after that. Okay.
Well, as of last night, I spoke to the comms director at Kenyatta National Hospital. That was around 9, and he mentioned that yes, indeed, Boniface Kariuki was in the ICU. The neurosurgeons and other surgeons who had been recalled to come help in the case. The status at that time, it was critical, very critical, and so they were going to battle through the night hours to see if they can actually do something. So by this morning, we should expect a statement on the status of the procedures they took on Boniface Kariuki, but the injuries were really, really bad. The injuries were really, really bad. And at the time, there were 15 other people who were again admitted at Kenyatta National Hospital. The number went somewhere around the region of 23 to 25 later on. And most of them had bullet wounds, and others had soft tissue injuries. So we are looking at this one case, but we also have several others, again, with bullet wounds.
And And you see, those are just reported cases, because I also spoke to one of the protesters yesterday, and just the numbers that they carried yesterday was close to 50 spread across different hospitals. So you'd get Kenyatta Hospital is reporting 25, but other hospitals have others as well. So in terms of getting the actual numbers is really difficult. But then again, one would just ask, I was asked a question yesterday, MWANASE. Every time we have these protests, you're out there chanting for the rights of Kenyans and whatnot. Do you ever get there and say, there's a possibility I might not go back home?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you live with that?
I think this month, it's been a very different atmosphere as well. It has been since last year. Last year during the protests in Kilifi, I spent a week locked up, facing charges of robbery with violence, extortion with violence, things that were just inflated charges to try and silence me, stop me. This year felt different. I'm a single mom of 2 girls. So leaving Kilifi to come back, there's a chance you won't return. But for me, it's more than there's millions of children. I refuse to live in a country with 50 million beggars and 50 millionaires. There's children, there's people who suffer daily, who die daily from hunger, from lack of health, from police brutality, from violence. So, although we're human, we understand our lives are at risk. We're threatened. We get it. We're tracked. We're surveilled. We're monitored. We will not be silenced, and we will not be intimidated. So we're aware that this is a government of murderers that reign with impunity. This is historic. It's not new. There's been a lot of sacrifice for us to enjoy the freedoms we have today. So the reason it's slightly emotional today is because we knew this month is different. We're here demanding justice for what's happened since last year. And we know there's serious reason to remove people like us from the front line who are going to continue pushing regardless. We're all one bullet away or one arrest away from never breathing again. But ultimately, it's not enough. It doesn't stop us. We're aware, and it's important to be aware because, yesterday there came a time where I was tough. I'm not one to back down, but I had some thinking work I also wanted to do for the continued week ahead. This is not over. It's not just the week ahead. It's not just today. It's not just 25th. So we have to balance action, we have to balance thoughtfulness, and we have to balance risk mitigation. No one is trying to die a martyr. There's enough blood that's been sacrificed. So seeing how things escalated yesterday, I think, what ended up happening is they came back again with axes, they came back with knives. And then when we took a step back, we actually sat somewhere downtown on a second floor, just taking a moment to regroup because they were coming towards Hanifa, they were coming to Shakira, they were very angry with us and they didn't like us fighting back. At one point, a goon was trying to rob Hanifa's phone and had a rungu there, and Shakira and I were close and we kind of jumped on him, held it back, and people came and helped, but they could see that we weren't scared of them, So when we took this step back and we watched from a bird's eye view, I think we can see it in all the videos and all the headlines. The police joined them. They joined each other. Wameshikana. So you had all the goons, even before the police joined them. This NPS statement is the most bullshit that I've read. It's infuriating, actually. They're marching past Central Police. I don't even need to go into detail. It's a good thing that the media were, there to help tell our story, to help showcase the reality. But every government official, this Minister of Health, the NPS, who are suddenly speaking out, all of these politicians who are suddenly speaking out about these tragic deaths, they are heartless. They are part of the problem. and they're also going home? Why is it that 60 youth were murdered, 65, some of which have never come back to their families, some are still missing today, brutally murdered, tortured, bodies dumped in dams, Kware victims? Why is it that suddenly a life is important? Suddenly you care to speak up? Hatutaki, it's not your sympathy, it's beyond return. And the NPS, their statement that said their concern over an incident showing a police officer shooting at an armed citizen. Their concern was not that the police officers that were shooting at multiple armed citizens and them condemning thugs. This is, it's perjury. They should all be they're lying under oath. People have been lying under oath for a long time. Our president is lying. They're all, murderers, thieves, corrupt, liars.
Let's hear for a minute what Suba North, Member of Parliament, actually did say yesterday. I know that there is a little bit of an error here because at that time it was not clear Boniface Kariuki's true identity. So let's hear from her on that.
I've just learned that actually the young man that I'm talking about, I'm being told, is again from Homa Bay and from Suba. Madam Speaker, that is why we must always stand on principle. Can you imagine if I was speaking here carelessly, saying how it is nice for police to kill people? But I've said the police need to restrain themselves without knowing that this is a person from Suba. Madam Speaker, I want to repeat, it does not matter, and he was selling masks because people are demonstrating. I've actually watched that clip. It is totally reckless and irresponsible what that police officer has done, and they are doing a disservice to this government, because when you make 5 steps forward or 10 steps forward, they take you 50 back. And we need to be moving forward as a country. We can't be moving back all the time. What do I go and tell the Suba people? Honestly, I don't know if it's from Suba North or Suba South, but whichever is from Suba. It is unfortunate. And from Homa Bay, we are tired of mourning. We are dying of natural causes. Even yesterday, I lost my nursery school teacher at which. Today, again, we are from the police. Let us die of natural. Let us die of natural causes, not being killed. Homa Bay, please.
Thank you.
Ongondo Were, Ojuang. Now, surely, all of us are being killed. Who will remain in Homa Bay?
Okay. Yet to be confirmed in terms of, we don't know. Okay. But the stuff of what she was saying, I think worth hearing. That why do we see this reckless behavior? It's reckless behavior. And I want to come back to ask the questions that we see the protests, and it's sensitive, MWANASE, and it is difficult to hear such a question. But if we know already that this is what is going to happen when protests take place, is it cowardice to then say we will not go into the streets, but we will make our voices heard in other ways?
I think we've seen clearly that you don't have to be on the streets to be arrested, murdered, tortured, and your life ended. So there's nowhere that you're safe. Let's say that much. There's nowhere that you're safe for many reasons in this country. I think, personally, I think it's important to recognize that this has never been just a streets-based movement. There's a lot of organizing that happens off of the streets. We're not here. Right now, people have a responsibility, which they're failing on all levels. We have the parliament, of puppets and piglets of Ruto. If you care so much, why have they not demanded for a public inquest as to the 70 murders, abductions from last year, so that we can actually have transparent, we've been asking for that, a transparent, independent process investigating the 70 murders. Why do you only care now? And why are you failing on that level? We have, the judiciary where we're still looking at years and years and years of Baby Pendo, for example. Why has there been no justice to date? Not a single, it's been 7 years. The court rule, so we are being failed at every level. I'm not here because Ruto is going to fix this country. I'm not here because our current politicians that are currently in power are going to fix our problems. They are the problems. Tunasema fagia wote, because we're being led by corrupt thieves, greedy, people who are very insensitive to the needs of the people. So at the moment, people have a responsibility, and we will push for those responsibilities to be implemented. IPOA is I don't even know. Sijui nisemaje. Takataka ama. It's complete rubbish. It fails on every level. It does nothing. It's another little, butterfly of our terroristic dictator, Ruto. And terroristic because terrorism is when you use excessive violence and brutal violence against your own population. So we have a multifaceted strategy which is going to continue. Streets is part of it. Ultimately, we're also going to continue pursuing justice at every avenue available to us. IPOA is failing. Our judiciary is hanging by a thread. But I can't say it's really, it's not where we would hope where it is, that it could be.
We're gonna even as you say that, there's still I don't want to say that they're doubting Thomases, but in terms of folks who don't actually connect with some of the things that we are seeing, and we want to then have different conversations, it is sensitive, and so we're going to give a warning before that, because we're going to put it on air, the video that we saw of Boniface Kariuki being shot yesterday. So it is not a fool's paradise that we're existing in. It is not a made up thing that we're saying that people were shot. So I'm just going to tell you, viewer discretion is advised before we put this on, for you to see exactly what happened, and we continue after this.
Wow.
It happened, and they walked away. People were, of course, up in arms, and then people ran to actually pick him up and try and take him to the closest place, which was Bliss Medical, which is not too far away from that, before he was then transported to another hospital. But this happened, and it's very, very difficult to watch, very difficult to see. Dennis?
You see, the thing is this. When Boniface was being shot, you will notice two things. One, they were being filmed. That didn't deter them from still shooting Boniface. We've had these conversations of a rogue unit that is working in parallel with the regular police in deterring this kind of protests that we've seen since last year. What you're seeing is something that has morphed into a totally different things. Like what MWANASE was saying, you have a set of groups that was in the CBD yesterday. We'll get into that maybe a bit later. But my biggest concern is look at the weapons that they were carrying.
Yes.
You will notice that the weapon that was used to shoot Boniface is not a standard weapon that the Kenya police normally use. So you have the Kenya police, the General Service Unit. They typically carry weapons like the G3s, the AK-47s, the MP5s, the Scorpion Evos, the M16s, the M4 rifles. That's the range for those who understand firearms that you will see police carrying, Glocks and the Browning pistols. However, you look at this particular weapon that was used on Boniface is a Stuja P3000. Now, in layman terms, this is a hunting shotgun. And what this gun does, what is so scary and devastating in this case is, one, when you talk about bullets, you're also looking about the gauge. So this is a 12 gauge shell that was used, either a slug or a backshot. Now, let me explain it. A slug is one heavy piece of metal. So sometimes you'll have a plastic, it has like a sort of like a metal case at the bottom. The buckshot is a group of metal balls. So you have one shot fired, but there are pellets within it. So it's like several bullets released at the same time. Now, the devastation at 3 feet away or 5 feet when Boniface was being shot here is a slug can actually blow apart the skull instantly. There's no chance of survival. 2, if it's a buckshot with multiple bullets at once, it will destroy the brain instantly. It will tear through the skin, through the bone, and even through the brain. Now, if we are talking about Boniface surviving this at KNH, that will be a miracle. So my concern is, if we have a rogue unit within the police system, they're using these guns. Why use those type of guns? It's very simple, so that you remove the traceability in forensics. So you're not able to trace where this gun is coming from, because we have standards when it comes to firearms within the police service. So when you start seeing weapons being deployed that are not necessarily standard, then it tells you, zoom out, because we're zooming into this particular incident. Now zoom out and see the bigger picture of what is going on here.
Indeed.
You see, yesterday I was supposed to go pick up meds for mom, but I couldn't do that because I couldn't just access the CBD, and simply because the police were there doing whatever it is they were doing. They were goons. But that means mom's medication has to delay simply because she couldn't get it on time. That is the effect of the things that we see. But that notwithstanding, you hear statements that have been made by Sakaja, and he's not even been summoned by the police or even NCIC to just substantiate his statement, you know. We continue to see statement that was made by Farouk Kibet. Nothing is being done about it. Then again, you come see individuals with batons that on a normal day you would see police use them. And one begs the question, if the police is not for us, where will we go to as the citizenry?
Well, I want to thank you for being here with us this morning. And even as we come to the end of it, what are we hoping for? Because we know that already the protests are not going to stop. The demand for good governance and the demand for accountability and transparency and continues to be on the mouths of many. What do we see going forward? Quickly.
We see Ruto going back to ICC. International Criminal Court. That's one of our goals and objectives. He's the ringleader of this whole gang of government, and if he can murder, order people to shoot to kill, order the army to kill, steal trillions with complete impunity, all of those elected puppets, and I can't call any of them leaders, that he's put in power, that can do all of this with impunity, are kind of given a precedence. This country at the moment is run by gangsters and thieves and liars, and so ultimately we're going to continue organizing, we're going to continue putting pressure for accountability, for justice, and we're going to continue organizing ourselves for transition of political power, as well as prosecution for crime. We understand our constitution, we know what rule of law in this country looks like, and we will be continuing to push for that to be implemented for everyone who has gone against it, and will continue to. So I think our call is also to Kenyans. Last year there was a sacrifice that was not intended. A lot of blood was spilled by youth who were demanding for better. They didn't want taxation on basic goods. They didn't want cost of living to go higher. They were rejecting the finance bill because it would affect all of us. We're still looking at punitive taxes. We're still looking at misuse of public resources. We're still looking at terrible governance, state-sanctioned violence, and impunity. So we're here on the 25th. We want to honor, we want to remember, we want to recognize those who are murdered, fighting for us and fighting for a better country and for all of you. So we ask Kenyans from everywhere, all parts of the country, please join us as we walk, as we lay flowers with their mothers on the streets where they were killed. And as we continue to push for accountability and justice, it is a National Remembrance Day, and we appeal to everybody to please come out and join us for that day. Or don't go to school, don't go to work, hold vigil. I can't call it a public holiday, it's National Remembrance Day, and we would greatly appreciate everyone honouring that with us.
MWANASE AHMED, thank you for being here this morning. We've run short, but thank you at 7:03.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.